Good morning. Been a long time since I openly shared about my journey. Um, it's been several months. Today's March 5th, 2025, 352025, 303052025. And I I just want to share where I just want to share from authenticity, vulnerability, and intuition from some spiritual places inside myself and my own soul path. And just to contribute to the collective and whatever blessing this may bring or wisdom, so be it. We live in a unified field. Ultimately, that field is the field of love, and the energy of source is love. And I used to define love biblically by 1 Corinthians 13. Love is patient, love is kind. Love is not jealous or envious. It's not proud. All of those things, right? And then we have First John. It says, God is love. And, what is that? And my journey has taken me out of religion, as so many, are exiting the limitations of religion. Saturn in Pisces. So many are exiting the limitations of religion on the mind, on the heart, on the life path, um, removing the judgments, uh, the superiorities, the separations, the divisiveness, the blindness. And we have cried out for this for so long. This was our prayer. I want more of you, God. I can remember meeting after meeting, intercession after intercession, privately, publicly, collectively, crying out more. I know there's more of you, God. There's a more expansive understanding, understanding, experience of who you are. What is that? And in our limited view at that time, we could only see it as more of what we already knew. But it was far more than that. And it would have to wash away all of the limitations and restrictions that religion was putting on us. And it would have to melt our hearts with a burning that would purify and cleanse and passionately ignite us for something far more boundaryless than we had already known within the four walls of religion. And that's just, part of what is happening. But I speak about these things because this is my journey in this particular incarnation. This was my journey. I had to walk through it, and I chose that with God. I chose that in God, in source, in love. And we are here in the earth school to learn the lessons. And we know the story of the Israelites going around the mountain for 40 years. We know these scriptures in the Old Testament, in the Torah. of the Israelites. They go around the same mountain, and they had a trip that was only supposed to last them days, if not weeks, and it took 40 years. Now, realistically, I don't believe that that really happened. It's a story about our soul, because we truly do go around these same mountains and around the cycles and patterns generationally, until we arrive and we have to cross, over into the promised land. And Moses could go. And so that old, stale, it's not that we don't love our ancestors, because our ancestors live in us and we live in our descendants. Of course we love them. They are in us, we are in them. We are one. But we can't take with us into the promised land the old ways, the old cycles, the old karmic patterns. And so, Saturn in Pisces is ending those cycles. Pisces is the last house, especially of the unseen, the house of the unseen. It is the house of the spiritual, the mystical, but it's the house of the unseen, things that we can't see. And that's why I believe right now with authenticity and vulnerability, but also the meekness of self-reflection, and more importantly, the ability to have safe relationship that we can be able to say to one another, may I speak freely? May I really speak freely to you? Because our shadows are our blind spots, and those are usually the biggest areas of cyclic patterns that keep us going around those mountains for 40 years. And, the pride of the heart, Mars has been, it's hard for me not to talk about the astrology because it's so clearly reflected back to us in the sky, the message. And we can take that message, we can hear that message through scriptures or through the astrology or through many different means. Prophetically, we can hear that message. We can hear it through our own intuition, but it's taking that message and doing with it what is being shown to us. And there's a fine line between being powerless to change ourselves and where the brokenness of humility comes in and pride melts. And the power of humility becomes the greatest force in the universe, and transformation happens. And deep down, I believe that in all these things, we deeply cry out for this, because deep down, we really know, although we may not want to see, and psychology can define all of these things. Our denial, our projections, we don't want to see, we see in others what really is in us, all of that. Our angers, our rages, our disassociations, all coping mechanisms that we learned and we carried within us from the generations past. I believe that the nervous system of this present generation is exhausted because it is carrying the exhaustion of the generations, not just the traumas, but the exhaustion. It is exhausted out. And so Pluto in Aquarius right now for over 20 years is going to, as it is now in the beginning, part of Aquarius, I believe it is cleansing to the depths all of that stuff that is resident in our nervous system. It has to, while we are experiencing the refining and the burning and the transformation and the renewal as these, planets move into new houses of fire and air. There will be reignited passion and renewal. But this Mars retrograde has taught me that without the power of humility, humility is the greatest secret, I believe, in the world. I believe humility is the greatest secret. And when I say secret, I don't mean it with a negative connotation. I mean it as a hidden treasure. It has to be sought after. It has to be found by us, and not with striving, but ironically, with the opposite, with grace and with surrender. And I believe the one of the greatest words of this hour is surrender. And I believe one of the greatest words of this hour is volatility. Having Uranus as the first planet in my chart, in my first house, um, it can have a lot of volatility in relationships because it's in the house of my significant relationships. A lot of volatility. Uh, I see a pattern in my life that when I become close to somebody, I am never the same and they are never the same. You know, we have these relationships sometimes and it's just an acquaintance or a friendship or whatever. And yeah, it's nice. And, you know, it doesn't really transform us, but it's a blessing or whatever. But then you have the relationships where there is volatility because Uranus is also the planet of radical truth. And that radical truth is going to be shown to me, not just through me, but to me. That's the point. It's going to be shown to me through significant relationships. And we are in, you know, the Aquarian age is commencing right now as decided by the collective consciousness. We have decided as a collective consciousness that the age of Aquarius will officially commence in the middle of this eclipse window on March 21st, on the spring equinox. And that they're saying, you know, the collective consciousness is basically saying this is when the age of Aquarius will officially begin and the end of the age will pass. That is beyond words. This is the end of the age that the Bible speaks of. Lo, I will be with you always, even unto the end of the age. This is the, you know, apocalyptic, great and terrible day of the Lord that the Bible speaks of. It's all imagery, but it really is happening um, in this realm. And there are many realms. There are many rooms. If it were not so, would not I have told you? We can look at that on so many levels. And so we're in the great humbling because there is no way to demolish or tear down an old system, to allow an old age to pass away and a new one to emerge, and a new age to, you know, be renewed and into a new age without there being a humbling. It's like deconstructing, you know, a whole system. And we don't know what the new is. And if we become presumptuous that we think we know, we are deceived. We are in our own blindness. And so it's better for us to walk in grace and humility of not being presumptuously prideful in our hearts to think we know. We don't know what tomorrow brings. But this onset of the age of Aquarius, ruled by the planet Uranus, which is a planet of tremendous revolution, volatility, unexpectedness, surprises, you know, lightning bolts of electricity, renewal and upgrade, collective awakening, power. This is Uranus, you know, uranium energy. It's nuclear. We're being blasted. But we're also being, you know, going through certain types of fires. We're going to be going through certain types of fires. We're going to be reignited. We're going to be passionately awakened in the new. A lot of that has to do with our identity, our essence, knowing who we are, having an inner standing and a knowing. Pisces is I believe, Aquarius is I know, consciousness is I am. Where we become the witness truly, and we step back and we're able to observe. And so we flow in and out of all these places, right? But volatility, from everything from personal relationships to the markets to crypto to the financial system, we've been waiting for a reset of the financial system. How that would occur, how's that going to be transitioned to transition the entire world financial system? Yeah, the new one's already in place behind the scenes. But how does the collective consciousness move out of the old financial system into the new? How does that actually play out in this movie that we're watching, but we're also not just observing, but being affected by? I think we're on the cusp of that. God wants to heal us, and that God is not just inside of us, but it is the essence of who we are. And we carry that presence with grace, with humility, with awe, with wonder, with miraculous, magnetic, marvelous um, care and tender surrender to this higher power that we sense that we are one with, yet we know that our humanity is fragile in carrying it. We've been humbled to incarnate. The incarnation of our human form is actually a humbling. It's a fragile humbling. And to be aware of that on a moment by moment basis. I mean, we could be going along in our own pride and everything, and then all of a sudden, like here in Tennessee right now, this norovirus is going around and it's violent. It's volatile. And we could be telling somebody off, and the next day we're violently vomiting on our bathroom floor, and we have no control, even of our own body. And so this incarnation into human form, it's our humanity that humbles us and that speaks to us. The body keeps the score. The body speaks to us. God, the divine, the presence of God that lives in us, speaks to us through our humanity. And so we're coming into a greater connection between our divinity and our humanity and the oneness of that all. And the fragility of that, the volatility of that, the connection and the way that that flows together. And how it can't be separated from all the areas of our lives, physically, psychologically, emotionally, financially, mentally, relationally. We can't separate, but we do, and that's those coping mechanisms that we talked about, just denial and disassociation and projection, blame. There is a beautiful but volatile disruption in the stronghold of shame. Because when we feel ashamed, we hide, we blame, we project, we separate, We become enraged. We protect. We lie. We deceive. Whenever we feel ashamed, and there's the story of the garden. And so there is this uprooting. Uranus and Taurus, there's an uprooting of shame in the garden of our soul happening. There's a disruption and uprooting of shame. Truth, this radical truth coming in, not only to remind us of the essence of who we really are and our true identity, but also to reveal to us those deeply rooted areas that we have come under shame and how we have projected all of that out upon others. And that journey is bringing us into a new level of authenticity flow as a humanity. Authenticity, where the shame falls away. It flows away. We are delivered of this shame because a lot of that shame, I would say all of it, is based in a false perception of our identity. If we knew that we were divinity wrapped in humanity, if we truly knew that we are the essence of the Christ, if we truly knew that we are existing in love all the time, shame cannot root itself in us. And so we're being given the higher mind, but we've got to have that Pluto in Aquarius right now because the mind, Jupiter and Gemini, taking us back to foundational mindsets that were ingrained in us and re-blessing those places. With something new, something blessed, something we didn't receive at that time in our formidable years, where shame took its place and rooted itself there. I think shame is the root of so many addictions because it causes so much anxiety and causes us to run away. And then, the cycles, right? But we're in a time of great volatility right now, especially while this age of Aquarius commences and also while the outer planets all move into new houses. We will be, I believe, in the most compressed time of change in all of our lives and in the most recent history, the last few hundred years. This will be the most compressed time of change and transformation in the next year because we're already in it. It started, last year. But going into 26, this is what we're in, volatility, wild swings in either direction. And so that can be emotions moving in either direction. We read, just because I'm so familiar with the Bible, it's David in the Psalms, 1 minute he's praising the Lord and God, you're everything to me. And I love you, O Lord, with all my heart and soul. And the next chapter, he's literally like falling off a cliff and hiding under, a rock. And he's screaming like, my enemies are going to kill me. God, why have you forsaken me? And don't you love me? And when are you going to like have revenge on my enemies? And, when, oh Lord, how long, oh Lord, do I have to go through this stuff? I'm losing my mind. I feel like I'm mentally unstable. I'm emotionally unstable. And then the next, chapters, he's strumming his harp and he's a minstrel again and he's worshiping the Lord. It gives us such consolation to know and to be reminded of our humanity. But it also is the great humbling. And so both of these things are happening. We're being reminded, we're remembering our humanity, but we're also remembering our divinity. And that is humbling, and that is awesome, and that is miraculous. We're realizing that we are one. I am in you, you are in me, we are in the Father. What is the Father? The progenitor of life. Is it a man in the sky with a beard? That's silly. It's a progenitor of life. It is the breath within us. It is the force of when we cut ourselves one day and we wake up the next day and somehow it's healed. How did that life force heal itself? How did it know how to do that? That's what that life is. It heals, it loves, it comforts, it never leaves. It never leaves. So volatility will come, and that's why we can appreciate the reminder of, as Psalm 19 says, all the heavens declare the glory of God and they speak forth. These energies speak forth to us the language that all can understand. If we intuitively want to hear the message, we can hear it resounding through the heavens. And it can remind us that, you know what, we are fragile humanity, swaddling divinity. With care, without presumption, and with unknown, because we're still remembering. We're always remembering. And so we can remember we're in this volatility, especially for the next year. Very intense volatility. This is why we're seeing all this stuff on the TV and all of the uprooting and all of the, blasting through the, these players in the world system are only actors of the collective consciousness. That's all they are. They are just actors acting out the collective consciousness. And this is why all the disruption, all the revolution, because this is where we really are. They're not taking us there. They're just reflecting back to us where we are. And so there is a love revolution happening. And we are in volatility as these outer planets change signs, as they change houses over the next year. And so we can remind ourselves on those volatile days and in those volatile times to come back into ourselves and to witness, to come back into that witness place and to remember and to speak to God within us and to pray and to fall back into grace. To remember the Great Awakening is a great humbling. And that love is ever present. It brings a calm, it brings a peace, it brings a comfort in that great volatility and chaos. I'm at work. Bless you. May you find peace. May you find treasures in your soul path today. And just receive the love that you always were. May we all know this love. that surpasses knowledge.